Hello, and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to fascinating and top dog individuals from across the globe. They're fascinating stories that will amaze us, fascinate us, and shock us. Now, today's guest is all the way from Mexico. His name is Martín Leon. He has a beautiful name, and he's storming audiences all the way in Mexico. And he is going to tell us about the Mexico comedy scene, and he's going to help an individual like me, who all he knows about Mexico is Queen of the South. That's what he's going to do. Please welcome Martín.
Hey, thank you so much, Marvin. It's Marvin, right? Like this. Also, I want to get your name right.
Yes, it's Marvin. You know, like, what kind of
All right.
Marvin goes to your mind?
Right. Marvin. I like British way.
I did some comedy in New York, and before I was like, the act that went after me said, "Oh my God, we have an Asian Hugh Grant." Do I come across as that? I don't know. A lot of people say that I sound posh. Others just say I sound London.
I have no idea what accents, to be honest. Like I know there's an American and a British accent. That's all I know. Like I remember because I had one time I met like this girl who was from Manchester, this other girl who was from London, and like for me, they just like yeah, they're just British. It's fine. But you do sound posh. But might be me thinking, yeah, all English accents sound posh. You do sound posh.
Oh, okay. Well, if you go to certain parts of London, it'll be slightly different. Like I'll show you a quick little clip, and I want to see what you say. We're gonna watch this. We're gonna watch. So this is a scene. They're meeting two friends. This is a rough part of London.
You little youngers didn't see me and my boy coming to talk to these two things. We never saw you, I swear. Alright? Bounce? Alright, no, I'm not going nowhere. Unless you want me to go with you.
Lie to me. You don't have to go. Excuse me, but these are our friends, and I'm not trying to be rude, but
We're not interested, so if anyone's got to go, it's you guys.
Why is it always the dead thing to start talking?
She's not dead.
don't talk to my friend like
Or
that.
what? I remove from her, man. What? Do you want me to wet you up? I ain't scared of you. Do you know who I am?
Yeah, you're Peckerman Skitzer, innit?
What?
What? He's not from around here, so he don't know you. Where you from?
From Bedford.
Ghetto boy, yeah?
Nah, I'm not a ghetto boy, I just live in Bedford. Wet my man up.
Leave me alone.
Allow it, man.
Say it.
Timmy, run!
Hey, yo, move from my boy, what you doing?
Hey, are you my man? Hey, don't let me wet you off as well. Do it.
Chill.
No, minor. I wet this little prick up first. Then I wet up this little pussy up. Then I wet this Mickey Mouse little bitch up. You dumb. Do you not know that Switch's little brother?
So you may have a bit of that in certain places. But think compared to where you are. Well, I can't hear you. What happened?
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
So what did you think of all that? I mean, that's probably pig squeak.
Yeah, with the speed where they're talking, and then sometimes like it's like sometimes when I'm watching comedy on Netflix or somewhere, and there's like an Irish accent or something, or like a very just very like I don't know, like they talking super fast and everything. I'm like I'll be watching, and with a friend, and my friend's like, "What did they say?" And I'm like, "I have no idea."
Oh
just
yeah.
reading subtitles.
That's yeah. There's a mix of everything in London. Sometimes I may as well, especially in Central, may as well just be a melting pot of everything.
Yes.
It's
And that's kind of like a cool thing. Like one of the really, really cool things about doing English comedy right now in Mexico is we get people from all over. So we had a girl from India. We have, of course, a lot of like Americans from all over. So there will be like, or Canadians, and several places in Europe. We have a guy from Singapore who's been doing comedy here for a little while. So it's really, really cool the variety of people you get to meet. And also like Mexico City is a large city, so you have also like this melting pot of, lots of people.
Yeah. Yeah, we should call the English scene in Mexico City and London as a whole the world. The world.
I like that idea. Yes, yes, let's do it. We can add New York into the mix.
Of course. But New York has a mix of a lot of different things, but I think in terms of the mix, it's probably Asian, Puerto Rican, Cuban, uh, and black and all that. And that's
Yeah.
right, African and Afro-Caribbean. Whilst in LA, it's probably more Mexican, African,
I
Caribbean,
mean,
Asian.
yeah, I mean Mexicans took over LA a while ago. And yeah, and it's also happening a little bit like all over. Like my sister lives in Texas, and of course, like, right next to the border, but it wasn't until recently that Spanish comedy nights started happening. And so it's like both ways. So it's like mostly like Spanish speaking comedians trying English comedy, and mostly English speaking comedians trying Spanish comedy. So it's really fun. And then like that's another cool thing about here in Mexico. It's like some people have been living here for a while. Maybe don't they speak Spanish, but not, they don't have like perfect comedy of the language. And then they're like, but I would like to try some Spanish jokes. And they go to open mics and everything. So that's a lot of fun. It's like really interesting also to see of course, their perspective as foreigners living here or having lived here for a while, what they say and what they notice about Mexicans.
What so what's it would you notice any difference in terms of like the way you deliver a joke in Spanish and English? And would you say that yeah, what's the difference in terms of I noticed with what's his face again? The guy that speaks a lot in French. Not Papa CJ, Sugar Sammy. When he talks
Okay.
about the English comedy, it's the fastest language to get to the punchline. Whilst with
Yeah.
French, it will take maybe a little bit longer to get the punchline.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing. It's English, you can be way more concise, I think. Spanish tends to be wordier. Uh, and 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 just in general, I think Mexicans like to add a lot of words into jokes. One like very old comedian, well, not very old actually. He passed away, but one of the first big comedians we had like on screen was called Cantinflas, and Cantinflas would always like just a little bit like in Finding Nemo, the part where Marlin starts telling a joke and he just stretches it and stretches it. He would like, in fact, we do have the verb cantinflear, which is just you're just talking and talking and repeating the same point over and over again, and people love that. So yeah,
Oh,
it is wordier, but also audiences sometimes will enjoy a wordier joke versus English, where they're like kind of you kind of have to be more concise with your writing. I mean, of course, some things like some comedians do manage to like do wordier jokes in English, but yeah, that's I think in the purest way, that's one way in which they differ. The other thing here in Mexico is in Mexico, everything is a double entendre. Like everything has a sexual connotation. Like they call it albur, and it is like it's even a verb, alburear, and that means like no matter what you say, someone will take it sexually, and everyone will take the piss out of you, as I say. So you can't say like I want a banana with someone like, oh, do you want a large banana? It's like everything. So that happens a lot too. So wordplay in that way, Mexicans love it, and
oh,
even this one was pretty obvious, but like even subtler ones, they love it, and sometimes it catches like foreigners off guard because they don't expect so much all of the time. And like, you go to the mercado, you're buying something, and the guy who's selling you, he's doing this to you, and you're like, why? What's happening right now? You're 12 years old. Stop. So yeah, I think those are the main differences.
And you mentioned like before in the podcast, you have quite a unique upbringing. Like you spent a lot of times in sort of English speaking schools, and you spent a bit of time in America. Has that shaped your humor in a different way? And has it would you have started had you not? Do you think it shaped? Do you think it shaped how you do comedy? And do you think your background has probably led you to doing comedy today?
Yeah, totally. The thing is, like, my family has always liked comedy. They're like both like English stand-up comedy and Spanish. Like what we had before, we didn't call it stand-up comedy. They call it cuentachistes, which was more like comedians who would take street jokes and just, again, stretch them and make them like add personal like jokes and experience to them. And I remember when I was very little, we would drive we were living in Guadalajara, which is like central west Mexico. And we would visit my family in Monterrey, which is North Mexico, and we would be driving there every summer and every winter. And it was like an 8 to 10 hour drive. So we have like, old cassette tapes, and my dad would buy comedy tapes, both English and Spanish. And that was part of what I was listening to. And I would watch some stand-up comedy and listen to some stand-up comedy. Like I didn't like know to call it stand-up comedy, but like we would listen to a lot of jokes. And like in my family, we were always, make jokes to each other. We're very sarcastic around each other. We're very, whenever the family got together, it was always people trying to one up each other with jokes. And my parents really wanted me to have like really good English. So I actually went to this school in Guadalajara, which was actually for the children of missionaries coming to Mexico, American missionaries. So it was a Christian Protestant school, and like most of my classmates were American. So I'd spend half my day around them. And like when I came home, I would usually watch like cable television. So I watch Friends and The Nanny and like sitcoms like that. And yeah, like there's this word they use nowadays. It's not a new word. They use it more nowadays, but they call it whitexican, meaning kind of like a white Mexican. And I'm not white or white passing for that matter, but it basically also means someone who is trying a little too hard to just be more American and consume American things, and uh and in a way, I say I was raised white because like I always had like English music, and telenovelas were banned in my house because my mom said they were awful for you and did nothing for you, so we couldn't watch telenovelas. So I like most of my reference growing up were American, and a little like also a couple of like non-American, like both Australian and British, um but when I started doing stand-up, which was like I didn't even know there was stand-up here in Mexico at the time. I thought like, well, I guess stand-up only exists in English. So I was here in Mexico thinking, well, maybe I could go to a hostel and try to see if they have like a stage I could borrow, and I could just, annoy the nice people at the hostel for a couple of minutes. And that's when I met the few people that were doing stand-up comedy here at the time. And yeah, like my humor has always been um a little bit snappier, a little bit more sarcastic, and a lot of my jokes do translate because I kind of, when I started doing stand-up, I kind of started writing jokes in English. So I would write the joke in English and then bring it to Spanish, and that isn't that common for other Mexican comedians who write in Spanish and do the whole wordplay in Spanish. So when they go to English, it doesn't work anymore. And now I do kind of like my writing, I think, would be 60-40, 60 English, 40 Spanish. Uh, but like, yeah, at first it was more like I was trying to emulate, and especially after I lived in Connecticut for 2 years, Connecticut, US, and I had access to Comedy Central, and I fell in love with just stand-up comedians, and I was watching as much as I could. That very much influenced the way I wrote down jokes because I really didn't ever take a comedy class. I just thought, well, I like stand-up comedy, and people think that I'm funny when I'm talking, so I really just started trying to emulate what I was watching, and yeah, that kind of made my humor like I what I see here in Mexico is a lot of references to Mexican television, especially old Mexican television, which I wasn't allowed to watch. It's not I wasn't allowed, like, like you will never. It's just like my parents just told me like it's awful, don't watch it. I'm like, okay, fine, it's awful, I won't watch it. So they have a lot of references that sometimes I don't get, where so my references, and not really references, but the way I write jokes was more like sitcom and more, American stand-up like. And that has and like I was never really, thinking about how I write or how I do comedy. Now I'm trying to sort of navel gaze a little while in my material, and think about like why I do the jokes I do, how I do them. Um, but yeah, of course it has affected the way I do comedy, and it was also affected the way I relate to people because um like my references are, all these American shows. So when I'm talking to people, it's mostly about that, and then when they start talking about like more Mexican stuff, I'm like, I didn't watch that.
Oh, and okay. And when you sort of got started so you started comedy in Mexican, right?
Yeah.
Um, how does the Mexican scene start? Is it like like London and New York and LA where they have open mics, middle spots, and features, and then headliners, stuff like that, and
Yeah,
there's a couple of
yeah.
big
I
clubs.
mean, it's recent. Like I started doing comedy 12 to 13 years ago, and what happened, basically we already have like comedians, stage comedians, and now they call them cuentachistes. But yeah, there was this thing, like a lot of people like me were like, I want to do this comedy that's more like the comedy I see coming from the US and other places. And so now, back when I started, there literally was nothing. Like there was this one place in, like, not really downtown Mexico City, but like one of the more gentrified areas of Mexico City. Um, and what happened? It was several things, but what happened was there's this uh big name in like Mexican TV called Hector Suarez Gomis, who went to the States and saw a full comedy show and was like, I want to do that, but in Spanish. So he took some courses in the US and he came back and he started doing comedy at this small venue. And slowly he got more of a following, and slowly he like grew into uh like the biggest stand-up comedian at the time in Mexico. And so he wanted to get more people to do it. So he like started he and his producer began this thing called like a stand-up comedy festival, and the idea was like the best people from this festival would be able to have like a class with him and be workshop by him and go and be his openers, because by this point he had a show at a 500 seat theater, I think, called his show was called El Pelón en los Tiempos de Cólera, which is a play on love in the times of cholera. um so like parallel to that, there were other people already trying to do stand up, and there was this group called Los Ex Rollin, which had several people who are still doing comedy today. Gus Proal, Hector Garcia, Adriana, uh, oh my God, Adriana Chavez, and others whose name escapes me now. I'm so sorry. And it was really hard because people expected more of the street joke and expected more of this not so personal. Because like as a stand-up comedian, to go on and be like, well, this is what's happening to me, and this is what this is funny. People were like, why are you telling me this? Tell me a joke about a drunk guy that comes home and says something funny to his wife, you know? So people would just like stare at you like, why? And at that point, I was like literally what happened was like I was thinking I want to do stand-up comedy. I don't know where. And then this friend of mine was like, hey, I have a date with this guy and I don't want to. So just come with me and we'll, you'll tell him, oh no, we have to go, and we'll go. And so I went to this date with my friend to this date, and my friend was like, I have to go to the bathroom. So she went to the bathroom, and I was just left with this guy, and I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Juan Carlos Escalante. And Juan Carlos Escalante was one of the first people to do stand up here in Mexico.
Oh,
And I was like, so what do you do? And he's like, I do comedy. I'm like, what kind of comedy? I'm like, stand up comedy. I'm like, where? And so he got me in contact with this producer guy, and I did my first 5 minutes at this comedy festival. And I wasn't one of the winners, but the producer liked me. So he was like, you can be part, not officially part of the people that take the course and have like the workshop and open shows for Hector Suarez, but you can be part of this. And so that was then. Now we do have open mics, and I think we do have open mics in Mexico City the whole week, but I think we have at most one each night. And so there's not that many. It is like a growing scene, and we do have like the thing where like smaller open mics are trying to happen, but of course all the comedians want to go to the big mic, and Mexico City is a really large city, so depending on where you are, you might not have that many people around you interested in doing comedy or watching comedy. People are still a little bit kind of confused by us on stage. Of course, your mileage might vary, but in some places, yeah, they're kind of like looking at you like, why is this happening? On the other hand, there's way more stand-up comedy that on YouTube, like Spanish. Franco Escamilla is a big name now, so a lot more people understand what's going on. And yeah, some people will say that what Franco Escamilla does is like a mixture of the old type of comedy and like stand-up comedy. And it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's growing, and but still there's like a very few venues that are like only stand-up venues, and even those they the pool of comedians they pull from. I mean we do have like a lot of comedians here in Mexico City right now, or a lot of people trying to do comedy, I should say. But that was shady. But anywho, but yeah, like it's right now like the biggest places here in Mexico City are Woco, which was like the first place that really like decided to give us a space to do comedy in. 139, which was a space open specifically for comedy. Photo Shakespeare, which is like this place that has several like stages. And at first they were like, no, we're not gonna do stand-up comedy because that's not art. But now like at least every night they have like at least one comedy show. And slowly, ever so slowly, we have like more people and more, especially more people wanting to give us stage time and not only do comedy.
hmm. It's whoa, that's quite a. Is it so? I know nothing about Mexico, as you can tell from everything I've said, but um, I have a friend who's a comedian who's from Zimbabwe. He moved to South Africa, but now he's in America. But he told me when he was in South Africa, in certain places like the townships in Soweto and Johannesburg, like if you bomb on stage, you may die twice. So is what's the limit? Can I ask this question? What's the
Sure.
limitations in terms of like what you can say or can't say in Mexico? Is it quite censored?
I don't think so. I don't think so. On the other hand, like if you're in Tijuana and someone tells you there's an narco in the audience, maybe don't pick on them. But no, I think Mexican audience have, when I started, especially as a gay comedian, but which I am, it's like I was a little bit hesitant to be like very open about it. And there were some spaces where little people told me maybe you should tone down some jokes here. But I think Mexicans, uh, since we really like, making fun of each other, as long as you're not putting them down in a way that's like super aggressive, they're not gonna take it personal.
Okay.
And even like in a table, like if you have a table and you pick on one guy and that guy takes it personally, like the rest of the table will be like, what dude, like what are you doing? So I I I think the most sensitive topic would be around religion because we are a very Catholic country. But at the same time, like most people make fun of religion anyway. Like even like you have like the grandmas and like the very, conservative fathers, like, how dare you say that? But like even like in before stand-up comedy, like in comedy shows and in television stuff like that, they would like make fun of God and make fun of like Virgin Mary. So I do think like Mexican audiences are far more permissive. Uh Maybe some areas, there are some states that are way more conservative, especially around Mexico City. Um, I went to this place not too far from here, Tlaxcala. We did my Adriana Chavez, who was like the first lesbian to do stand-up comedy here in Mexico. And me, I'm not the first gay guy to do stand-up comedy, but I'm one of the first to like really get into it. And we went to this little bar in Tlaxcala, and most people were like super cool. Like they were, they like maybe they looked at us like, oh my God, a gay person, wow. But they weren't like, they weren't aggressive, they weren't like defensive. There was this one guy who again kind of like started like, and he was drunk, so he was getting a little bit belligerent. And he tried to like he was trying to like kind of like have like this conversation with me from stage. And I'm like, no. And forget what I told him, but he got like a little bit offended, and they had to take him out of the show. So that does happen, but for the most part, I think everything is game. Again, as long as you make it funny, which I think the the important part. Sometimes people say like, "Oh, you can't talk about this," and then I ask them, "Well, what happened?" And then like tell me what they said. I'm like, "Well, you like." It's one thing to have like crowd work and be kind of like making fun of someone while at the same time having the show go on, and it's something completely different to just shit on someone from stage
Mm.
and expect them to be like cool with it, which I do think sometimes does happen with like newer comedians, because there's some comedians who are great at crowd work and they want to emulate them. But it's way different for you to be like, I'm gonna watch this comedian and I know he's great at crowd work. So at one point he might call me like, you're ugly, but like make it funny, rather than just be at an open mic, which you were dragged to by one of your friends, and this guy who hasn't even said one joke goes like, well, ugly people have horrible lives, as you would know, and just point at random audience members like,
Oof.
people don't even know you, they don't like you, like make them laugh once and then try it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
don't antagonize from the start, because like for me especially, like Mexico, there is a lot of machismo in Mexico, and there is like a lot of Mexican men have very fragile masculinities. But on the other hand, there's like game you can play with them, like but from stage. Um I I have like done like play flirting with straight guys like in places where people would tell me, don't even tell them you're gay, because in here they don't call it hate crime, they call it Thursday, right? Uh so just don't. And I was like, I think if you get them on your side, you can do everything because you're just playing with them. And then at the end of the night, they might be like, "Hey, here's my number," but that's another different. That's another story.
Oh, okay. That's you put on the charms. Did you went, oh, what this, son? Boom.
Yes.
No, that's what's what's been like the maddest or like craziest funniest experience you've heard about from another comic, or like you've witnessed where someone's picked on, as you said, a narco or something, and they've been like, what?
Well, we have had people, like we're, don't go out, they're waiting for you outside. Uh, and uh, there was, there was this, well, that wasn't even the comedian. That was more like the venue thing. That was not that doesn't count. But long story short, this woman at a comedy show had her cell phone out, and the waiter told her, you can't film the show," and she's like, "I'm not filming." But like the wait staff got like angry at them, and she got angry at her, and she got angry at them. And at the end, she happened to be working for the government, so they shut down the bar for some months. But that's not the comedian. That's not the comedian. No, I think the wildest thing I've seen was a guy getting thrown the guy in the front row. The guy just kept on picking at him, and so he just grabbed his beer and just like, not the whole thing, like just spilled his beer on the comedian, like, and the guy like jumped, so like it didn't get him through, but it was just like, at some point, like the guy just like got like, it was like enough, and threw the beer. And at that point you're like, what do we do? Do we like, somebody has to mop the floor? What's happening? And he was right in the front row, so it's like, again, so what's gonna happen now? And of course we were all just like thinking, I just hope the guy doesn't like go up the stage and try to beat him up. But not, thankfully that didn't happen. But yeah, no, I haven't been witness to like super wild things. So that's the extent of that I've known so far. So
Okay.
far.
I run a heckler's night, so occasionally I get the audience to pick on the comics, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, it's a bit. I'm sorry, but I enjoy it. I enjoy sometimes seeing comics get uncomfortable, and I enjoy sometimes seeing the comebacks. But
Yes.
it's a very fun thing. I know it makes me sound bad, but I don't care. I enjoy it. Um, how would that go in Mexico if you run a heckler's night? Or actually, no, you've already told me. Unless it's the wrong
Yeah.
person.
We haven't had a proper heckler tonight, and to be honest, I am terrified of the idea. But uh I don't know. Like I've had some good experiences with hecklers. I've had some bad experiences. Of course, like the thing when you have the comeback right there, it's everyone applauds and you feel like it's for the world. But when someone yells something at you and you're just like, "Fuck, I need an answer," and you're like, "Well, you're dumb," and everyone just looks at you like, "You lost this one. You lost this one. Too bad." Uh, but I think I don't know how you do hecklers tonight, to be honest. I think I think they tried to do one here in once, I think, but like when they told me what they were gonna do, I wasn't there, but the told me what to do is like, it was just gonna be like all of the audience just yelling at the comedian. I'm like, at that point, that's not heckling. That's just a mob against you because you're on stage. So I do, I do, and also like I have been guilty once or twice at an open mic of someone saying something and me just shooting back, and I'm like, oh no, I kind of said something awful to this person, uh, and now I feel bad about it. Not too bad, to be honest, but because usually it's like that joke was bad. Here's a better punchline.
Mm.
Yeah, no, like the thing with I've never done a heckler's night. I don't know how you do it, but I am a little bit terrified at the thought because like what I don't know. I would feel put on the spot immediately. Like, I need to answer this person. It's like being told at a party, "Oh, you're a comedian. Tell us a joke." Like immediately your brain goes like, "I got nothing." Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was hosting one of the shows that I run yesterday on Friday, and one of the audience members said, "Classic heckle, when's the comedy on?" And the heckle put down that I put on was, "As soon as I saw your face." But the thing is that that's not really that good. Now that I thought about it, I thought of like you'd maybe analyze who the person is, and then you add on top of it, oh, it's saying, "Oh, when's the comedy on?" Well, it's at 8 o'clock. You've got a bald head, so I mean, it's the comedy starts when your hairline came in, or something. But if you be specific to the person
yeah,
and like you analyze who they are, like their character or their fault, and then add into it. But yeah, I didn't think of that at the time. I came at that cheap line.
yeah.
But
Days
yeah,
later, when you're like, after you have cried in the shower, why didn't I notice it? No, actually, one of my favorite comedians who's also a drag queen is Bianca Del Rio, who is a master at reading people, as they say in the drag parlance. And one of the things she said that I do take to heart, it's not about you have to have several in your pocket all ready to go. So, and again, you have the like this quick mind where you're like, okay, so they tell you something and you have to look at them and zone in on something that they have that they're showing, are they, do they look more posh? Do they look are they balding, whatever, and then just go for that. What in my one that I did like a couple months ago at one of her English shows. She one of my like the comedian before me, there was this guy who was super drunk, and the comedian before me who was a girl, the guy just kind of kept just saying, "Oh my God, you're so pretty," blah blah blah, but like just ruining the show. And she's like, and she didn't know how to handle stuff. So like when I arrived, so I got on stage, and the first thing that the guy told like yells like, I'm like, "Hi, Martín Leon." He's like, "When's your friend coming back?" And I'm like, and I just looked at him, and I told him like, "Never. She's not gonna fuck you. She has standards."
whoa,
Yeah,
good.
and then immediately, so like laugh, and then immediately go like, "I don't have standards, and even I wouldn't fuck you," and that was like it. And the rest of the show, he was just there, and and his girlfriend was next to him, and you could tell the girl was like, "Just stop, stop, you lost this round, like you lost, just stop." But that was one of my again, when you manage to get that, like you're like, "Yeah," and everyone tells like, "You did amazing," blah blah. But when someone like gets a better view, like yeah, like that thing where someone just yells at you. Like one of the things, like I was bombing in the show, like bombing, like half an hour in stage, and if I hadn't like gotten one laugh too many, I was just bombing. And after the show, there's gonna be like music, salsa music for dancing. So I was like in the middle of a joke and no one was laughing. And then this old guy back of the room just yells like, "Put the music on." And I was like, I was like, I was like, I need to say something, say anything. And everyone's like you could feel the tension in the room. And immediately, the only thing I said was like, "Why do you want to dance? You're old." And crickets. I got off the stage 5 minutes after that. I was like, I cannot survive this. Like this audience is over. Like I'm done. Like I
Hmm.
need to change my name, move to a different country. Like that.
And then afterwards, you forget about it the next day.
No, that was like my first real big bombing.
Oh,
Like I was like, I literally didn't go on stage for 2 weeks after that. Like I was devastated. I was like, what am I even doing with my life? Like
is that statement true? I don't know who coined this, but I know a lot of comics mention this. They say if you're not bombing, you're not trying hard enough. I think now what you've said there, maybe that statement is half true because if you're not taking the big risks, then you're not maybe learning or getting better, or you're not pushing yourself, and so you don't
yes,
find out what works and what doesn't work, and you're not growing as a performer. But
totally, totally, totally. Like especially with like trickier subjects, like if you want to tackle anything that's in any way controversial, there are quotes around them, but like uh you don't get to the places the big comedians are without, making a lot of audiences really uncomfortable in the way. And I guess that's the thing, like, why are you bombing? Like if you're first, you wrote 5 minutes, no one's laughing. And then the next time you go on with the same 5 minutes, maybe you're not learning from that. But yeah, like there's been many times that I've seen a lot of comedians that I admire or that I think are doing a good job, do a big swing and do a big miss, or you can tell that they're working on the joke, and then they get to the part where they like the joke hasn't really like been worked it, and you can tell that they laugh, laugh, laugh.
hmm,
But yeah, I mean, bombing is weird because sometimes it is like you're working on the material, so you kind of lose the audience. Sometimes the audience just not with you. Like that this one time with this audience, like I fully you know, like, the comedian before me did all, I was the quote unquote headliner, and the comedian before me did 20 minutes, and he just killed. Like he did, he could have dropped the mic at the end of his set. He killed. And really the show was over at that point. Like I won on stage, and there's some stuff I would say about that show. Like I think I didn't start with my strongest material because I wanted to save it for last. But wasn't really. I was supposed to do 40 minutes. I did 30, and I did because I got off the stage. But like I thought, okay, I can just do whatever because like I got it in my head, and like the audience was like, no, I got knocked down a few bags. But yeah, like um I think sometimes comedians will tell me, I want to talk about this, but I'm afraid of what the audience will think. And I'm like, well, you need to know what the audience thinks if you're going to talk about that. Because it's not about not making the audience uncomfortable. It's about managing that discomfort. It's about making them uncomfortable on purpose. For example, when I was starting, I wanted to talk about homophobia, and like everyone around me was like, nobody wants to use jokes about homophobia, nobody wants to be lectured on a show. And I would start the jokes, and immediately the crowd will go cold. And the joke that got me, like, opened the door for me, was uh like I would try to sneak it in, like, oh my, by the way, let's talk about homophobia, blah blah. And but like the joke that actually opened the door for me was like, I do want to take it. I said, like, I do want to take the time to talk about homophobia, and immediately like the room would go quiet. I'm sorry if there are any homophobes, please here don't get offended. As far as I'm concerned, you can marry each other, it's fine. And just that one line made it clear to the audience. It's like, we're going to talk about phobia, we're still joking, we're still fine. It's that's the thing. That you have to manage the discomfort, and when you can manage the discomfort, that's part of doing comedy, because in the end, comedy is creating tension and breaking the tension, and if you're afraid to create that tension, then you're never. It's like how when you're starting, you are deathly afraid of any amount of silence in your show. Like, you don't want to be quiet for a second, because you know that if you stop talking, people will start looking, for the waiter, or they'll go to the bathroom. And as you become more adept in, keeping the audience attention, you can stay quiet for certain jokes, for the punchlines to really land. But again, you have to take the leap. You have to take the challenge.
Yeah. It's it's funny, and even like as a promoter and all this and that, first impressions are definitely a big thing. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's bad if they bomb in front of you. It's just that when you see someone perform on stage and they don't do too well, it's very hard to shake that image of them being
Yeah.
not. And the audience as well, like with the gigs that I run, there's some people that haven't done well and I put them on again, they've got that impression of them being shit. So oftentimes it's been very hard for them to shift it that they're actually decent in it. I mean,
Yeah.
quite a few have, but I mean, it's often quite a challenging thing.
Yeah, totally. Like, first impressions matter a lot. And that's why I think one of the best advice I got from, I think the stand-up comedy Bible is like, the first thing you need to do is your solid five for when you're opening or when you have like a spot. Because like, I think some people, like, they start doing comedy and they're like, immediately, I'm like, I already have the 5 minutes I wrote in my comedy class. Now I'm going to do my 15. And it's like, no, I actually have like 2 minutes at most. And now you have to write other 10 so you can have the final three for those five. But I like there's comedians I know where, like, now they've been working for a while and they're good, and you see them like consistently have good shows, but the people that saw them at their first open mic, or the people that saw them at that one night where they just bombed, are like, nah, you're like, yeah, no, that guy's bad. It's like, no, 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 he had a bad night. That happens to everyone, and I also think that one of the reasons why I think that happens here in Mexico is like, open mics, people are terrified to bomb at open mics, and I think that's the worst thing that can happen, because open mics are there for you to have it's where you can try new stuff and be like, well, that didn't work, cross it off. But here in Mexico, for some reason, and I think it's because for a while, like, the thing we had the most was the weekly open mic. um people just really they want to come to open mic and would think something that already works. And people will tell you like, oh, so and so was bad. And I'm like, where? And they're like, at an open mic. And I'm like, well, that's what open mics are for. You can't judge someone from their open mic. Uh,
Yeah.
but it is really tough to shake that first impression.
And have you had any instance where someone saw you at an open mic and you didn't do as well, but then they saw you at your big thing on the Comedy Central? Because that would be
Yes.
amazing. Or a story similar to that.
Well, first of all, the moment you tell a friend or you get cocky and say to a date like, "Come to my show, it'll be amazing." That's the day you have one of your worst shows. Like, like you tell your friend like, "I've been doing stand-up comedy for years. Come watch me." And like five people show up, nobody laughs, and they're like, "So you want to do this for a living, huh?" So it's that has happened. But yeah, no, I had one person come see me. I did like a 5 minute feature opening for a guy, and I did so bad. Like one of those parts where you even feel bad for the person that invited you. You're like they trusted you to warm up the audience, and you're just there standing in silence with all these people looking at you like, why? Like you can tell they're a little bit angry at the headliner too for booking you. Like what do you do? Like what did you buy for this guy that he's like letting you open the show? And then like a month later I was doing like a showcase, and I did like 20 minutes at a bigger show, and that went really well. And yeah, this guy in the audience was like, I already saw you in this show. And I was like, oh shit. And she's like, yeah, you really surprised me tonight. You're doing good. And I'm like, thank you. And yeah, there's been like a couple of people where they're like, or that thing where they ask you like, you don't do so well, and they're like, so you've been doing this for a while. I'm like, yeah, I've been in Comedy Central, and they're like, really? And that's more of a judgment on Comedy Central than a praise towards you. And it's like yes, and it was good. God damn it.
Yeah, it's bloody, it's bloody yeah, people. It's the thing about comedy. I always hear from actors. They say, and I'm going to speak to someone hopefully later on next week because she does acting and she's a comedian. So I want to talk about this. But whenever I come across an actor or director, they always say that comedians are better actors or great actors because they're able to do comedy. I'm not too sure about that question. I mean, I feel that comedians are more willing to be honest about themselves and open up a bit. And I think in some ways, maybe comedians are more thicker skinned than other performers.
I was thinking the same
But
thing.
maybe that's a
I
surface
think
level judgment.
No, I was thinking the same thing. And I think as a comedian, especially as a stand-up comedian, there's nothing between you and the audience. And when you have to really like, half-assed impressions don't work. So if you're gonna do an impression, you have to like go for it. And everything in stand-up comedy, I think like that. You can't, I see a lot of people that say like, I want to do, like dark comedy, but I want to start small. I'm like, no, if you want to do it, you have to go for it. And I mean, I don't know. It depends on the comedian, I guess, whether they're good actors or not. But I do think that as a comedian, you kind of have to go for it. So, while actors, directors might be like feeling out, like maybe this is happening, because they're in rehearsals and they're, discussing the role and whatever. As a comedian, like, yeah, you can like workshop stuff with friends and whatever. And again, that's what open mics are for. But you do kind of have to, like you said, be really honest and just put yourself out there. And that does make for, I don't know if it makes for good actors, but it makes for people that are willing to take a character and put them on stage.
And following on, like, this is a question that you're probably gonna. Being from Mexico, I know I get this like being mixed race man, being Asian. Like when my mum and dad were out in the town in just outside of London, I had a white guy shout out when they saw my parents, definitely mail order bride. That annoys
Wow.
that annoys me because like no, they bloody met each other because they liked each other and they're normal. And
Yeah.
and being from Mexico, you must get a lot of stuff. And as I said, all I know about Mexico is Queen of the South, and you must get a lot of people saying a lot of things that are annoying about stuff like that. But
Queen of the South.
what are also things about Mexico that are great about it, but no one knows?
Yeah. I mean, the food is great. I love Mexican food. I think we're very warm people. In fact, like a lot of bands and a lot of comedians have come and they're like, they have great times. They say, we're people who are like welcoming, and right now with my co-producer Mariana, we have this little show, in this venue that sits like 25 people, and we have the English show there, and whenever someone comes and they're like, hey, we would like to try to do comedy, we're like, yes, of course, like we really do try to make people feel welcome. um I also think, I mean, there's the tourist places, Cancun and Puerto Vallarta and what and all that. But there's like all of Mexico has really great things, like it's not like, um, I mean, we're kind of a big country, so like the customs in the north of Mexico and the food in the north of Mexico is completely different from the central Mexico, which is completely different to South Mexico. And everywhere I think there's really cool things to experience outside the more touristy things. People who like hiking especially say that Mexico is great for that. I don't like hiking, so I wouldn't know that. But yeah, I think, and again, I think the sense of humor is there. Like, yeah, I think it does get kind of hard at first to realize that making just because someone is making fun of something with you, or even like something of you, it doesn't mean that they're being aggressive. That's just like how you kind of play with people. Um, Although sometimes it is so aggressive, but yeah, I think especially when you start, if you're willing to and I think this is why I really like doing comedy here. Like if you're willing to make fun of yourself, um, people are very willing to just get to know more of you. And a lot of people from other places have come to Mexico and told me like they love the people. Several people that I know like came and they were coming here for like a month or 6 months or like a year, and they met someone and got married, and now they're here uh, permanently. So yeah, I think that's kind of it. And and there's some, I mean, Mexico City is a huge city, and it's, again, there's the touristy spots, but like you could walk around Mexico City for like a month and still be discovering new stuff, because it is this mixture of, Spanish culture and Mesoamerican culture and how things mix. And it's really interesting to see how what that ended up with. This looks like this because they tried to do this thing from Europe, but they didn't have the ingredients, so they and we've had people from all over since forever. So we have like there's a big Chinese community in the North Country. And for example, there's this dish in Hidalgo called pastes, which is literally when Irish workers came to the mine to work in the mines in Hidalgo, they wanted to make, Irish pastries, and they did them with whatever they had available. So that's how pastes became a thing. And I think that's a cool thing about Mexico. It's like it brings things together. And even if we can't pretend that, it's not like we said to the Spaniards, yeah, sure, come on in, you're welcome. No, they can't. There was a conquista, but in the end, I think they managed to like mix the two things and have something that respects both cultures and highlights both of them at the same time.
Mm.
Maybe I'm being too like idealistic right now, but yeah, that's why I like it.
Did you when you went to Connecticut? Did you get anyone saying anything to you about Mexico that annoyed you? Like what I said, anything like I said.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know. Oh my God. And now, not all expats come into Mexico, because like I can tell you a story in Connecticut. The first one, like not long ago here in Mexico. I was at a restaurant here in Mexico, like, and it was like it's a restaurant owned by this woman who's married to a British guy, sort of British style pub, and it's called the Dog House. And I was there, and I was near the bar, and this guy, like, looks at me from afar, and he just like waves his glass at me, and I'm like, whatever. And so he like approaches me, and he shows me the glass, and I'm like, I don't work here, but you're here at the bar, so you can get another beer. So he asked for another beer, and while the guy was pouring the beer, he went to the bathroom, and when he walks back, he tells me, he's like, I'm sorry about the confusion. I just thought you were the waiter because you're Mexican. And I'm like, you're in Mexico. Everyone is Mexican. What's happening? What's happening? So there was that one, and then and this one was in Connecticut. I was at a wedding, and it was at like a Venezuelan woman marrying an American man, and there was this woman who was kind of, she was just like sitting by herself, and I ended up sitting next to her because I was like, in her table there were other people, and I was talking to one of them, and they just left, so I was talking to her, and she asked me like, where are you from? And I'm no she asked me like, are you also from Venezuela? And I'm like, no, I'm from Mexico. And she said like, well, yeah, but south of the border everything's the same, right? And I'm like, wow. Like a whole continent, just like
What?
miles and miles and miles. And that's how you know that I have speak American English, because it's miles instead of kilometers. Like just a vast amount of land with so many people. And you're like, yeah, just the same. And I was like, wow, that's one of the widest things anyone ever said to me. Yes.
And what is Cancun like during spring break? I'm
That's a good question. I don't know.
joking, I shouldn't ask that.
I should probably, like, I am tempted to go just because I've been told the guys are cute. But on the other hand, like, I have dealt with enough casual racism without dating those guys. So
Ah. Now, for anyone that's looking to do comedy now, what would be your advice to them? And for anyone that wants to find out about you, where's the best place to find out about you? Is it on, I don't know, Google, Facebook? Um, I don't know.
Google's not a good place because there's another Martín Leon, and he's French, and he's more famous than me, so he appears higher in the search, and I hate him. No, I don't. But anyway, well, my advice for people trying to get in comedy is like, we are getting, like, you can tell, there's way too many people trying to get into stand-up comedy, and I think the main problem is that people are trying to emulate someone that they like, and you can be a great version of the comedian you like, but you're never going to be the comedian you like. So the sooner you stop trying to be someone else and start doing your own stuff and trying to find your own thing, because it's about you're never really gonna find the one thing. You're always gonna be looking for things that interest you, and you're gonna be finding things that you want to do. When people ask me like, is there space for more comedians in Mexico? I'm like, well, that depends what you want to do as a comedian, because like there's so many things to do. You can be a writer, you could be a podcaster, you could be an actor, you could just try to do like stand-up comedy shows as much as possible. um but it is a vast field, but you have to make your own path, and if you try to follow someone else's path, sooner or later you're going to start doing things that you're not cut out to do. So that try to do your own thing as soon as possible. And if you want to find me, my socials are, well, they're not a mess because they're all under the same at, but at Martin Leon was already taken. So I took all the letters, I jumbled them, and I got it at Mint Onarel, like Mintonarel, which is my name with all the letters jumbled, but I'm like that on everything: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. I think if you look for Martin Leon on Instagram, I'm usually one of the first people to show up. Uh, but some people have told me, no, Martin, you're there's 20 other people named Martin Leon that that are more important than you. I do have one more question before we
Yeah,
finish,
sure.
which is like, what advice you have for me now that I'm going to to London and going to try to do comedy over
Oh,
there?
okay. So I think just have fun, gig a lot, uh, make sh gig in the right rooms. There are there are a lot of bringers, so avoid them. Um, Go and watch a few shows. Go to Top
Yes,
Secret, Soho, which is really creative. Angel, Comedy Store. Watch them, some of the best comics in the UK. Chat with them, network. Um, yeah, and just go and watch some good shows, and sorry, go and perform at some nice nights. I mean, my
thank
night
you,
would be decent.
thank you.
um, yeah, just watch some good shows, chat to a few people, and that's it.
Awesome.
And gig. One more thing as well, and that if someone's listening on a podcast now and they are Beyonce or Harry Styles and like, no, Martin, let's meet up. What do they do?
If someone's like Beyonce and they're like, let's meet up. Yes, let's do it. Well, my phone number is now. Uh, Honestly, Beyonce. I think I'm more excited to meet Beyonce than Harry Styles, to be honest. Oh my God. Anyway, um, I, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't like that. You just blindsided me. I have no idea what I would say. I would say, I would say to Beyonce, like, I will do anything for you. You could slap me and I'll say thank you. And I'd say to Harry Styles, I like your style.
What about The Rock?
The Rock is way more my type of man. Yes, I like my man like I like my coffee. So strong, my friends. Actually, is that good for you? No. Yeah, The Rock. Like right now, my main like there's this show on Netflix called Physical 100, which is this Korean show, and it's just like 100 fit people, like men and women, just fighting each other for an absurd amount of money. And I love reality competition shows as it is, but like here's bodybuilders and strongmen and gymnasts and whatever. And I'm like, yes, I'm just here for the plot. And like, there's no plot, Martin. I know. They're just fighting each other shirtless, and I'm fine with it. That's all I needed from a Netflix show. That would it. That would it.
All right, guys, you know what to do. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. You know where to know if you want to find out about Martin. If you want to find out more about a podcast, we're on all channels.
Yeah,
Subscribe, give us a 5-star review.
subscribe to the Comedian's Paradise, which is a great podcast. I listened to it before I got on it.
You have to, yes, and pay us both money as well.
Please.